Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Strategy, Leadership, and Impact. It has been a very long time since I've done an episode. I know I've heard from a number of people in my network asking me when I was going to do another podcast episode, and here we are, finally. So just to give you a quick update, I took some time off from doing the podcast to write my second book, The Leadership Path, and that was published in September of last year, so in paper and ebook format. And in the interim, I've actually been doing a audiobook version of it. It's my first journey into doing audiobooks, and so it's been quite exciting. I'm actually not recording it myself. Well, I'm speaking it myself, but I'm actually not doing any of the, audio work myself. I'm actually going through a studio based in Hobart, Tasmania, that's been helping me with it. So Production Farm Studios, they've been absolutely amazing to work with. And yeah, I've been really happy with the process. So hopefully here in the next month to 2 months, we'll have an audiobook version of The Leadership Path. And then once that's completed, I'll go back and do an audiobook version of my first book, Soldier to Executive. So that's, again, another ongoing project. So hopefully by the end of this year, both books will be available in print, ebook, and audiobook versions. So I know there's some people in my network who have actually asked for an audiobook version, and they're quite excited about it and said that they're looking forward to listening to it, which I completely understand. Myself, I find that I read probably less and less than I used to now, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I actually listen to audiobooks, and I download a new one sometimes when I have a long trip to go on. So that's one of the ways I guess I kill the time when you're just looking out the windscreen and clocking in the hours and things on the road. So we'll listen to those audiobooks. And then sometimes too, when I'm working out in the morning and stuff, I'll throw in an audiobook rather than some music and just listen to that, and just developing myself, learning, getting different perspectives, things like that. So since I did the last podcast, things have changed just a little bit. So I've actually changed jobs, recently taken on a general manager role with the local government organization. It's quite good. It's an absolutely beautiful area where I live in now. The team that I inherited, I guess you can say, or took on, they have been absolutely amazing, and I'm very thankful every day to actually be given the responsibility to lead them. It's, again, been incredibly great. So as I've gotten settled in this new role, getting the audiobook done, the publishing done, getting a bit more settled, I'm back focusing now on the podcast itself and getting more episodes out, and I have over a year's worth of podcasts planned at the moment. So should be able to get quite a bit of consistency there. But also I've left some space for any special episodes I might want to do, or interview style podcasts. I've done a few of those in the past, and they were received quite well. I've been really surprised that even though I haven't put out any new podcast in quite a while, they've still been getting quite a number of downloads. I have several that are, well over 10,000 downloads now. And there's really no, indication of where someone might listen to it or why they might be listening to it. But of course, Australia is still my largest market, with the US being the next biggest market. But outside of that, it ranges across a number of countries of people that are listening to the podcast. So as long as someone's listening to it and they're getting something from it, every now and again, I'll get a message through LinkedIn, for example, where someone will ask me a question about a podcast or ask me to do an episode. And that just lets me know that I'm getting the message out there. People are listening to it. They're learning something. And of course, that's the big takeaway that I want from the whole thing. That's the reason why I'm doing the podcast. And looking at my current situation, it actually gave me the topic for this episode. And it's really looking at starting a new job and what are the pros and cons with starting a new job, because sometimes we don't really think about these things too much, but when we know what they are, we can think about them a bit more and be a bit more conscious in how we address them. Of course, starting a new job, it can be exciting, but also a challenging experience too, depending on how long you were in your previous job, if there's a change of actually industries, if you're having to learn new skills, whatever it might be. So here are just a few pros and cons that you need to consider. And we'll go over the pros first, and I have about 5 of those. So, of course, the first pro for starting a new job, it's a fresh start. Starting a new job offers you a clean slate, allowing you to leave behind any negative experiences or challenges from your previous job and to start anew. So particularly if you're at one of those jobs where you feel like you weren't treated appropriately, or you're just very frustrated and you feel like nothing was going your way or just wasn't the job for you, This gives you that chance to have a fresh start, leave some of that behind, and really just change your perspective. The next one is learning opportunities. A new job comes with new responsibilities, tasks, and challenges, providing ample opportunities for personal and professional growth. And that's even if it's in the same industry, the new organization may not operate the same as the last organization did. So again, you're learning new processes, but also too, depending on the size of organization you're at previously. If you move to a larger organization, there may be more chances for you there for upward mobility, for example. Also too, does the new organization actually put more of a focus on learning and development of staff and things like that versus what your previous organization was focused on? So again, chance to learn more things there. Networking. So join a new company, introduce you to new network of colleagues, mentors, industry contacts, really expanding your professional connections. So sometimes if you stay in the same industry, your network may not grow as much, but definitely if you change geographical locations, like another state, city, country, whatever, or if you change industries, your network is going to grow in that new industry or within that new area that you're located in. So again, pro number 3 is developing your network. And pro number 4 is higher salary and benefits. In many cases, switching jobs can lead to higher pay or better benefits, especially if you've gained valuable experience and skills in your previous roles. And I use this example. I was actually talking with someone about this the other day. One of the quickest ways you can increase your income and increase it more significantly is to change jobs. So if you're working for an organization, for example, and you've been there 3 to 5 years, every year you may get CPI raises. So your cost price index raises. So that, or your consumer price index raises. So that typically can be anywhere from a 1.5% or here lately, because of inflation, it's been 4, 5, 6%. So annually you may be getting, let's just call it an average of 3% per annum, right? So you get 3% per annum pay rise on your current pay packet. And just to keep the numbers easy, let's say you are on $100,000 a year, just to keep it easy. So, and the first year you're there, at the end of the first year, you get a 3% raise. Now you're on 103. The next year you get another 3% raise. Now you're on about 106 and a half, let's call it that. And then at the end of year 3, you're on about 110. So, and then at the end of year 4, let's say you've gotten another 3% raise. Again, you're looking at about $3,300, so $113,000, etc. But now let's say at the end of year 3, you're on 110. You go move organizations. You move potentially up a rung on the ladder, the hierarchy ladder of the organization, and you negotiate a higher salary. Sometimes you can see salary increases of 20 to 30+% whenever you move jobs. So let's say you're on 110 and your salary goes up 20% whenever you move jobs. Now we're talking $2,200 or $22,000. So that might not be right, but anyway, it's about $20,000. So now you're on $130,000 versus you stay at that other organization. Of course, you may like it there. You might not want to move. You might be quite happy with the salary that you receive, and now you're on $113,000. So that's a $7,000 difference. But now every year, those CPI increases are going to compound on that higher amount. So you stay there 3 to 5 years, and then you move again, another 20, 30% pay rise. All right, so you can see kind of where this goes. But also, too, if you're working for a small organization, moving every 3 to 5 years, you're constantly developing yourself potentially, particularly if you go to a larger organization. So something you got to look at, too. Have you outgrown your role? Have you outgrown your organization? Also, what kind of salary expectations do you have? Are they meeting it at your current job? If not, maybe it's time to look at going. And then pro number 5 could be improved work-life balance. So some new jobs offer better work-life balance with flexible hours, remote work options, and potentially less stress work environments. I've known quite a few people I've come across or interviewed who are changing jobs because their previous role or the one that they're currently in is incredibly stressful, or their circumstances have changed, so they're not able to keep up with the demands of that job, and it's not as flexible as they'd like it to be. And it could be either your early career, having children, things like that, and you want to spend more time with the kids or actually be able to be there whenever they have different events and show up at their school when things are happening. Or it could be if you're at your end of your career and you're wanting to scale back your work life and kind of take a step back and kind of transition to retirement. Or it could just be you just want to be home in the evening to be able to have dinner at home, or you want to have your weekends off. Whatever it is, sometimes if you're not getting that work-life balance in your current role, changing jobs, that's a pro that you could actually find that you could actually achieve by changing jobs. So now let's take a look at some cons. So some of the negative things, and you really need to think about these too whenever you do change jobs, and it's not necessarily that they're bad things. A lot of them come back to just adjustment. And that's the first con, the adjustment period. It can take time to adjust to a new job, new company culture and work environment, leading to feeling that, maybe you have feelings of uncertainty and discomfort initially. You think, oh, did I make the right decision? That's always going to be the case because you're trying to fit in. If you look at the Tuckman's model, that storming, forming, norming, whenever you go into that team's going to go through that dynamic. And you'll find your place in that, and then things will tend to smooth out, which leads us kind of con number 2. The reason why sometimes that happens is because there's a lack of familiarity. So starting new jobs means stepping into the unknown. That can be daunting, and it might require you to learn new systems, processes, procedures. Like I mentioned before, even if it's in the same industry that you're currently working in or worked in previously, the way that organization does stuff might be quite different. That can be good and bad. So one, you could be potentially learning a new way of doing things that helps you to, be more efficient, or you might actually bring in a new perspective, the way you used to do things that could actually make their systems more perspective. So it's a way you could potentially be more successful in your new role. And then con number 3 is pressure to perform. So there may be pressure to prove yourself and meet the expectations of your new employee and your colleagues. And that can be stressful, especially in the beginning. And this is probably a mistake that some people make whenever they start a new job. They feel like they have to show their value and show the organization that they made the right decision. Well, you've already shown your value, and that's why they hired you to do the job. Just do the job. You don't have to outperform everybody else. Small incremental changes and things like that in that nature will help you to be successful. Just doing the job sometimes will help you be successful. And then if you add just a little bit more into it, you'll be successful. But don't feel like you have to change the world in the first 3 months or 6 months. Remember, work is a long-term thing. Set your goals, set it within realistic time frames, and then go out there and achieve. And sometimes those goals will already be set for you based off KPIs, key performance indicators that your role has to perform to. And then the fourth con is loss of relationships. So leaving your old job behind means you're leaving behind relationships that you've built with coworkers and supervisors. And that can be difficult, particularly if you had strong connections with them or if you worked with them for a very long time. It's that familiarity, it's very comfortable, but the true relationships that you have will stay. So if you have strong relationships with certain people in another organization that you've built over time, those friendships, even some of those professional networks, and I'm very big on this, even when you change organizations, if there's people at the previous organization that you really got along with, had a really strong professional network, they'll remain within your professional network. And someday, you never know, your paths might cross again. I've found that to be true so much. And again, even working across different industries, there's certain people that I always seem to run back into or coincide with in different events or projects and things like that. And it actually helps things go a lot smoother. So maintain those professional and personal relationships where you can, or where you want to as well. And then, of course, con number 5 is probably a big one. It's a risk of mismatch. So that's despite, doing thorough research and your due diligence and going through interviews, there's always a risk that the new job might not align with your expectations or your career goals, which of course that's going to lead to dissatisfaction, or the need to find another job. You'll think, oh man, I really made the wrong decision. I've actually done this before, and I've experienced this where, within about a few months, I go, geez, this is horrible. Why did I ever do this? And you're in one of those situations where you can't go back to your old role. Not necessarily because you burned bridges. It's just something that a lot of times you can't do. But you get in that new role and you're just incredibly unhappy, and you go, wow, that's just so bad. And you feel like maybe you've derailed your career, like you're going backwards. But I can tell you right now, you won't, because at the end of the day, that is still a learning experience for you. So I went into an organization, again, incredibly toxic supervisor, absolutely hated it. Just one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. And actually, whenever I left that job, I went into something else I thought was good, but it was actually almost the same thing. I thought, oh my goodness, what has happened? That's 2 roles in a row where I've made really poor decisions. And so I told myself, well, next time, one, I'll go slower in the process if I can, but not necessarily to go slower. It's about to learn more about the organization. I'll expand my due diligence. I'll really do that thorough research and really know what I'm getting into. And part of that was actually sitting down and making a list of these are my expectations in a role. I kind of started with that and said, well, what are my expectations in the perfect role? What is it? And it's not necessarily looking at an industry. It's looking at the culture. It's looking at all these other factors that gives me job satisfaction. So again, you can get job satisfaction in any industry because a lot of times it's not necessarily what industry the organization's in. It's the culture. It's all these other factors around how you feel and how you feel whenever you do your job and how you feel every day when you go home. But anyway, that's a whole nother whole nother conversation for another day and another episode potentially. But these are all things that you need to consider weighing, all these factors carefully before you make a decision to leave a role and start a new role, or leave a job and start a new job, and be prepared for both the challenges and the opportunities that come with that. And then whenever those challenges come up, it's whenever you ask yourself, was it the right decision? Was it worth it? And sometimes you just need to give it a little bit more time, let things settle within that forming, storming, norming cycle, and you'll find that you're actually probably are quite well. And I actually read some research, and I can't quote it off the top of my head, that shows that most of the time when people move roles, they're usually end up in a better off position. So chances are you're going to end up in a better place and you're going to learn more. You're just going to be better off for it at all time, which again, if you have higher job satisfaction, that work-life balance is so much easier to attain. Anyway, that's probably all I have for this episode. Again, I have a number of episodes planned out and we'll be more consistent. So just stick with me and we'll get there. Anyway, take care. Bye.